What's up, guys? It is Wednesday, July 22nd. This week on the podcast, I have Kalle Rosenbaum. Sorry, I hope you said your name right. But he's the author of Grocking Bitcoin, and we talk about Bitcoin, kind of the fundamentals behind it, why he wrote the book, and I think it's something that you guys will enjoy and can take some value out of. Also, thanks to Manning Publications, you guys have a 40% discount if you use code PODBlockHash20. I will put that in the description as well. And stay tuned on social media because I will be giving away 5 free ebooks. There'll be a code for that, so stay tuned. Keep your eyes peeled. As always, be sure to subscribe if you have not already and share this episode with somebody that you think would like to learn more about blockchain, Bitcoin, or Grocking Bitcoin. Enjoy.
We're doing just fine without strict lockdowns.
What's it like living in Sweden, though? Like, I know very little about Sweden.
Sweden is cold in the winter and nice, warm in the summer. Right now it's summer, of course, so we have a very nice summer day today in the archipelago, 24 degrees or something like that Celsius, that is. So yeah, I love the Swedish summer. I love the Swedish winter too, but summer is awesome.
Gotcha.
And yeah, you have a lot of different colors in different time of the year.
Do you guys? So you do get some seasons?
Yeah, a lot of them. I mean, yeah.
That's good. No, we don't get seasons in Nevada. It's just hot desert air.
Yeah, all year round.
Same thing with Medellin. It's just tropical in 75 to 80 year round. It doesn't really change.
Yeah.
But I know that's nice. Yeah, how are people handling the whole pandemic and everything there? I know Europe got hit pretty hard, but I haven't really heard much about Sweden.
Well, yeah, it's pretty relaxed, as I said. But some people are, of course, freaking out, and some are more, aren't too bothered with it. So I think people are handling it pretty well, and we are not much more. We're not hit harder than any other country.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're doing quite well, actually.
Do you know how many cases you guys got?
I lost count. I think we had about 5,000-6,000 deaths so far, which is, but we're 10 million people, so per million. So per million, it's 500 or 600 per million.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw.
And it's mostly elderly, of course.
Okay. Yeah. Most of the casualties are elderly worldwide anyway.
Yeah, or people who are already sick.
Right.
Somehow.
Yeah. I stopped counting a while ago just because the numbers keep changing every day. They flatlined for a while and they spiked again over the summer. Not really surprised. It's gotten pretty bad in the US. Colombia's actually done pretty well. And then we had an outbreak, a bit more of one in late June. So now they've kind of clamped back down and lockdown got a little bit stricter. But other than that, it's not too bad here. I think overall they've had like maybe 60,000 cases in the country total, a couple thousand deaths maybe total out of, I think is like 40, 50 million people. So not too bad. Definitely weathering it better than most countries. But anyways, thank you for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate you, taking the time to do it and everything. So like before we kind of jump into like your book and everything and blockchain and Bitcoin, so the audience can kind of get an idea of like who you are. Can you kind of give like a little bit about your background, where you came from, kind of where you are now? Obviously, we know you're in Sweden. Or like what you're working on now, just kind of give them like a general idea.
Yeah. My background is in computer science. I worked as a software developer for 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered Bitcoin in 2013, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
and got pretty hit by it. I started digging into the technical details of Bitcoin in 2014. You know, when I started realizing I could actually understand this system, it was quite quite an eye opener for me to actually understand that I could grok this system
Mm-hmm.
that's Bitcoin. So I continued on that journey and dig deeper and deeper, and started blogging about Bitcoin. And in 2015, I started my own consultancy to help develop systems around Bitcoin for various Swedish companies. So I've been working with Bitcoin since 2015, which
Mm-hmm.
is a pretty much of a blessing. And in 2016, I was contacted by a publisher called Manning Publications,
Mm-hmm.
and they asked me if I wanted to write a book about blockchain. And I thanked them for the interest and said I wanted to write a book about Bitcoin because I think blockchain is pretty much overhyped as a word. So I wanted to focus on Bitcoin because that's where my interest is or was at the moment. So we started talking about that and negotiated some nice terms. So we started working on this book in late 2016. So it's been quite a long journey because it took me 2.5 years to write this book. It was published a little bit more than a year ago now. So it's been out on the market for a year. So that's where I come from.
Nice, nice. What was your initial interest in Bitcoin?
Yeah, good question. What actually got me really hooked was that I could understand and grasp the technology itself. No, actually, to be quite honest, my first interest in Bitcoin was a speculative asset. You know, I bought some just to see if it catches on. You know, but that got me digging deeper. That got me into the technology. So that was my leeway into Bitcoin. So actually it's a speculation that got me in the very beginning, but then the technology took over my interests. So I've been into the tech now since 2014 or so. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I think 2013 was about the same time that I got interested in Bitcoin and that I really started learning about it.
Yeah.
I think that was about the time it really had its first run up in price, where it went to like $1,200, and then it crashed and went back down to like 300 or $200 or something for a couple of years. I still
Yeah.
remember the run. It was like the first time it got in the news too. They were like, this magical internet money called Bitcoin is, well, it's worth like $1,200 now. It used to be worth a couple dollars. I remember
Yeah.
that whole news cycle and everything. That really got me interested in why that was happening.
Yeah.
It was like right off of the heels of the recession we were having in America, and people were very skeptical of the banking system, and all of a sudden there's this magical internet money that's doing really well. So I remember that sparked my interest and a lot of people's interest. So that was like my diving point where I kind of got in.
Yeah. So we're pretty much the same there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're very similar there.
It was wild, rising from $200 to 1,200 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
1,100 maybe. Yeah, that was really wild. And we see more. Then we had this December 2017 bull run as well.
Yeah,
It was just as wild too.
that one was fun, and it happened very quickly.
Yeah.
That was definitely a case where you had a ton of buy orders and practically zero sell orders coming in, and it moved very, very fast.
Yeah.
and tons of volume, trade volume in a 24-hour period. But I mean, it helped that it wasn't just Bitcoin. I mean, there was a whole ecosystem that was starting to exist. Did you ever check out or find any of the other cryptocurrencies interesting other than Bitcoin? Like, did you ever take a look at Litecoin or Ripple or Dash and see any similarities or differences or things you liked or disliked?
No, not really. None of those coins have actually caught my interest that much, because I'm a strong believer in the network effect of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And there are just so many altcoins that you can't study them all.
Right.
So I'll focus on Bitcoin, and that's where my interest lies. And I just tend to ignore altcoins. Well, actually, I do have some interest in Namecoin, one of the very first altcoins. Actually, I think it was the first altcoin. I'm not sure. Namecoin is a decentralized naming system aimed to replace DNS.
Right.
If you ever heard of it, I don't know, but now it's pretty much gone or dead. But it's not dead. It is alive. The blockchain is churning along.
Yeah, it's there still. I remember name service when it first came out. It was after Bitcoin. I mean, there was, Ethereum came out, and then people started getting really creative. Like, what could you do with blockchain? What kind of solutions could you create? And like Namecoin was one of them, having this decentralized domain system. Ethereum's kind of really taken that over in popularity with the ENS system, because you can link an ENS domain to a real world domain through IPFS, if you're familiar with all that stuff. So it's kind of taken away some of the luster from what Namecoin did originally, but it's not dead. I mean, it's still there. It could definitely make a comeback. I mean, who really knows?
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was an interesting experiment, at least, because it was a quite viable solution, I think.
It could definitely make a comeback. I mean, other than just Bitcoin, like blockchain in general, the whole fintech industry seems to be growing tremendously. There's so many solutions that can be created, and you could probably talk all day long about all the different things out there and all the things being done, which is, there's no point in doing that. But I don't know. I've definitely been very interested in all of those. I love seeing the different solutions people come up with, but I always end up coming back to Bitcoin because it solves a very important issue. And I think you'd agree it's that of money.
Yeah, exactly.
And the whole network effect, I find all that interesting too. And its cult following, and the fact that it's growing year over year. But I mean, for you, what about the network effect of Bitcoin regarding like the popularity of Bitcoin, the following it has, the network that it's built over time? Is that something that really drew you to Bitcoin and that still draws you to Bitcoin?
I don't think adoption itself is what drives me to Bitcoin. What drives me to Bitcoin is the possibilities for people who need Bitcoin, like people in Venezuela or other parts of the world with totalitarian regimes, or countries under blockade like Iran. Those people actually have a problem that needs solving, and Bitcoin might be part of that solution. And I think so far Bitcoin seems to be their only shot right now, and that's what I find interesting. I don't wish for Bitcoin to become adopted because of adoption, but I think it will get adopted because people need Bitcoin. And I don't care about people in the rich West world speculating in Bitcoin like I originally did.
Mhm.
admittedly, but that's not the importance. That's not the importance of Bitcoin. The importance lies in enabling the disabled people, or the people who don't have access to banking or access to
Mhm.
free money. It's the wrong word, but open money, or access to money, electronic money.
Yeah, Bitcoin definitely gives you sovereignty over your money. That's definitely one of the biggest um, aspects to it that I think a lot of people like, especially if you're in a country like North Korea or Iran or China, and you want control of your money, or you want privacy, or you want anonymity, or you just want control over the value that you have. I mean, it's definitely helped a lot of people, including in Venezuela too. I've heard tons of stories of people that have been able to start a new life simply by buying Bitcoin, preserving their wealth, crossing the border, and then being able to start over again.
Yeah,
Those are small.
that is fantastic.
Yeah, those are some small cases for sure, but it's definitely um, optimistic of where the future is going. I'm, it's I'm not sure how countries will react to it though, because I mean, there's a lot of pushback to allowing Bitcoin in certain places where it's probably needed most. Um,
Yeah,
but I don't know. Hopefully that adoption comes to a degree, or at least governments aren't closed off to allowing people to buy Bitcoin for monetary purposes.
yeah, and we can only guess what happens. I mean, they will. Some countries will probably do all they can to ban it or
Mm-hmm.
hinder it, or but I guess it's going to be different in different uh, jurisdictions. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So and I guess we're gonna see all kinds of reactions from officials in different countries. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, we can only speculate. It's one thing's for sure: they cannot stop Bitcoin, but
Mm-hmm.
they can punish people. Yeah, they can.
Yeah, they've definitely been doing that in China. I know that it's not illegal to own Bitcoin in China, but if you're buying or selling it, or you're mining it, you can definitely get arrested. It's kind
Yeah,
of weird how they've gone about that, because I know the courts have ruled differently than what the government would like in China
yeah,
regarding crypto overall. And it's been
yeah,
incredibly controversial in the US on what to do about it, and most places in the world. Um, but I mean, it's a lot of it's getting more favor every single year. I mean, it's even gotten governments talking about national currencies like a digital dollar, digital Chinese yuan. Um, so I mean, it's definitely created a lot of debate and a lot of talk about where the future of money is going.
yeah. The Swedish central bank is also discussing electronic crowns. They call it the e-crown,
Hmm.
uh, which is still just on the drawing board. I mean, they haven't a proper solution yet, but they're talking about it, and they made a lot of fuss about it, but there's nothing there yet. It's just talk so far, but yeah, they're definitely discussing it all over the place.
Yeah, I think China is about to launch theirs actually. The People's Bank of China has done a bunch of tests with it that includes some partnerships with like Starbucks and McDonald's and some big franchises. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, we
So
could,
let's call it the surveillance dollar.
yeah, I'm not sure it's something I'm going to be bullish on or I'd want to buy, but they're definitely trying to get to market before everybody else with this stuff. Um, so that'll
Yeah,
that'll be interesting.
it's an efficient way to get people to reveal what they're buying, for the
Yeah,
officials to get insight into people's behaviors.
yeah,
So
and
it's
easier and cheaper and faster too for them to have a centralized chain or blockchain of their own than it is to
yeah,
just print paper money all the time. So
yeah,
some benefits for them.
Yeah, for the people, yeah, but mostly I think it's a benefit for the government, who can actually see all the transactions and punish people who buy illicit stuff. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it can definitely be a double-edged sword. I mean, in Sweden, do you know how have they regulated Bitcoin, or have they regulated it at all?
I'm not sure what's actually meant by regulated, but there are some stance. They have made some statements on Bitcoin, especially the tax authorities have made statements about Bitcoin, how it's supposed to be taxed. But there are no kind of bans or anything on Bitcoin. It's just you're free to buy Bitcoin, but of course the exchanges still must obey the KYC and AML rules.
How are they taxing it?
It's capital gains tax, and that's 30% in Sweden. So if I make a $100 gain when I sell my Bitcoin, I need to tax $30.
So is it being considered property from that standpoint then?
Actually, they call it something like other assets. It's a group of things they call other assets. And for example, a painting is another asset. So it's more like collectibles or so. They regard it as a collectible, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I know in the US they've painted it with quite a broad brush. They just kind of said Bitcoin is considered property for tax purposes.
Yeah.
And that's led to all kinds of creative ideas, like things you can do with land and property apply to Bitcoin in weird ways. Things you can do with gold, apply to Bitcoin from a tax perspective. So there's been some really interesting ways people have been trying to.
Sorry, is gold also considered a property like that?
Yeah, at least in America, from a tax point of view, gold is considered property that you own.
Okay.
And they classify different types of assets a certain way. I said Colombia in America, so that you know what tax bracket they fit into and what you can do to minimize your taxes or calculate your taxes. So like they'll have like stocks and equities, and then they'll have like property, and then they'll have what's considered money or currency. They kind of just lumped Bitcoin into the whole bracket of property. Which is good and bad in certain ways. Like, for example, there's what's called the wash rule. So like in stocks, like if you sold a stock, you can't buy the stock back immediately. So if you're trying to take a loss, like a paper loss on your stock, you could do that, but you couldn't buy back the stock and short it in such a way.
All right.
Wait like 30 days, for example. Whereas you can do that with Bitcoin. So let's say you buy Bitcoin at $1,000 and it goes to 500 and you sell it. Now you have a $500 loss you can take against your taxes. Right. But what's different is that you can buy your Bitcoin back immediately if you want to, without any repercussion, because it's not considered a stock or an equity. It's considered property. So it kind of has the benefits of fluctuating and being volatile like a stock. But it has all the properties of being a property. So there's been all kinds of creative ways that people have been using crypto, at least in the US. And I know that's probably similar in other places too. Yeah, the final topic I want to get into is obviously the main topic, your book, Grocking Bitcoin. Let's talk about that. What does grokking mean?
It's a slang. It comes from a book called Stranger in a Strange Land. It's a sci-fi novel from the 60s. And there the word grok showed up in a couple of places, and it meant something like to deeply understand, or to understand on a nearly empathical level. so understand on a deeper level, become one with the subject, really getting it, being the subject.
Wow.
So yeah.
So
So it's
it's kind of like
this,
grasping.
yeah, but more than grasp, I think. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll have to start using that word.
Deeper. Yeah. Yeah. It's caught on a lot in computer science circles. So you see it a lot. But yeah, technical writing.
Gotcha. So what's Grokking Bitcoin about? Like, why'd you write the book?
Yeah. So Grocking Bitcoin is a book about Bitcoin. It teaches the reader about how Bitcoin works on a very deep level.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with the book Mastering Bitcoin by Andreas Antonopoulos,
Mm-hmm.
this book, Grocking Bitcoin, covers basically the same kind of topics, but I teach it in a very different way. So my book is based on illustrations. I mean, there are several hundreds of highly detailed illustrations there, and coupled with concrete examples. So the book starts from scratch. The book actually builds Bitcoin from scratch, starting with a very simple system that anyone can understand. That is an online spreadsheet that everybody can download, and everything is just clear text. It says like Alice to Bob 5 cookie tokens. We call the system cookie tokens in the book as we go. But we will build upon this crappy system. We have a lot of problems with this very simple online spreadsheet. There's no privacy, and it's prone to censorship and all that. So we apply Bitcoin tech chapter by chapter, and towards chapter 8, we have actually created the system that we call Bitcoin. So we kill the problems along the way, and in chapter 8 we end up with Bitcoin. So that you understand why each topic or each technology that's used in Bitcoin, you really understand why that technology is used. For example, why proof of work is used to decentralize the creation of blocks and so forth. So yeah, so that's the path. And then after chapter 8, we have a few more chapters that discuss a bit deeper. For example, SegWit and stuff like that. So it's a journey, and you should probably read this book sequentially. And it's not only for developers. This book, the target person I had in mind was a technically interested person who wanted to understand Bitcoin on a deep level without being a developer. So there's no code in this book. So it's just illustrations and concrete examples that are hopefully easy to follow along. And it's also, every chapter contains a number of exercises that you can do to validate your how well you grok the topics.
What's the exercises like? Are they just like questions about what you read?
Yeah, basically, yeah. There are two types of exercises. We start off with some simple ones, simple fact checks, like what's the hash function what hash function is used for proof of work, for example. Then you should know that it's double SHA-256, for example. And then I have a sequence of tougher questions which requires more thinking, and so both simple fast fact checks and more in-depth questions or exercises.
So, I mean, regarding your target audience, is it something that's fairly easy for a kid to read, or is it more built for someone that's, going into college or coming out of schooling, or like what's the age range?
Yeah, it's for grown-ups.
Okay.
Definitely. It is a pretty tough book. It's not an easy read in any way. Uh, it is a tough book, but anyone with a technical interest should be able to grok Bitcoin if they give it enough time and just walk through the book at their own pace. So, but it is tough, especially if you're I mean, if you're not that techy, you might find it a bit difficult. But if you have a good understanding on what a database is or what a computer network is, you should be fine, actually.
When you were, in the process of, writing this and putting this together, is there anything about Bitcoin that you learned maybe more about, or that you learned that you didn't know prior?
I'd say that SegWit was one of those topics that I really had to research for this book. But actually, every chapter is a result of deep research, because no one can write a book like this and just get it right. You need to, every fact that you write, you need to actually double check it or ask people who know more than you how it actually works. So it's a learning experience for me too. It really was a learning experience.
Right.
Of course, I didn't know I knew just a fraction of this book when I started out, actually. So yeah, it was a tough learning experience. That's part of why it took 2.5 years to write it.
Yeah, I remember writing a lot of papers when I was in college, and no matter how much I knew about a topic, I had to do tons of research and I had to use tons of different sources. But I'd always come away with some better understanding of at least some aspect of whatever I was writing about or putting together. That's why I kind of asked the question. And you said you learned quite a bit more about SegWit, right?
Yeah.
What about SegWit did you learn more about? Because it's actually something that I don't know too much about. I know that it made Bitcoin a bit easier in terms of being a payment, but on a technical level, I know practically nothing about SegWit.
Yeah, right. So the main thing I learned about SegWit is actually what problems or what improvement it brings. It's not just the most common improvement you hear about is something called transaction malleability. Maybe I shouldn't go into detail what that is, but that's one of the main goals for SegWit, to fix something called transaction malleability. And that's basically transaction malleability means basically that a transaction can change in subtle ways without changing the effect of the transaction, but the idea of the transaction changes, and that causes problems in the Bitcoin network or for certain wallets. And that's one of the problems that that SegWit fixes. But there are other problems that SegWit fixes, like inefficient verification of signatures. If you have a lot of signatures, signature verification becomes more efficient with SegWit. And you also get a bump in the block size. For example, we had a maximum block size of 1 megabyte before SegWit, and now we have a theoretical maximum block size of 4 megabytes. But that's a practical limit is now 2.4 megabytes or something like that. So it's those kind of subtle improvements that I had to learn about.
No, that's awesome. What else will people be able to take away from your book, or is it mostly just technical knowledge on how Bitcoin works?
It is mostly technical.
Okay.
On how it works. Yeah, and the main takeaway is probably that the reader will understand how little they know about Bitcoin, because the more you learn about Bitcoin, the more you understand how little you actually know. So it can be quite disappointing in that way. but you will you will be stronger in a way, because it will be harder to fool you into accepting changes to Bitcoin that you actually wouldn't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
You get the knowledge to vet new ideas, to like or dislike new ideas on technical merits. You can judge ideas by yourself without trusting others, and that's a very important property in Bitcoin. That
That's
and
awesome.
run their code and run their code of choice, that implement the rules that they agree with. So that's one of the major goals with this book, actually, is to have the reader judge for themselves whether they trust the system or not, and to be able to understand the code they are running, not the code itself, but what the code does.
I mean, you seem to understand it on a fairly technical level. Obviously, you've wrote the book and everything. So let me ask you this question that's kind of, debated amongst most people nowadays. Do you think Bitcoin is going to in the future function as money, or do you think it'll function more like an asset that people will be able to just hold and that will appreciate or depreciate in value?
I think it will function as money, and it will emerge as money, probably in places that we didn't think of, or
Mm-hmm.
in communities that we didn't think of on the internet. I think the first, of course, I have no idea, but I think it will emerge on internet communities somehow. The money function will emerge there, but also in physical world. Physical world will probably lag a few years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we'll see money use for Bitcoin, absolutely, especially with second layer technologies like Lightning Network, which
Mm-hmm.
enables a better payment experience.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I've used Lightning Network quite a few times. It is a little difficult to work around at first, but it is very, very fast. It does kind
yeah,
of help create a payment system for Bitcoin. So I am excited to see that continue growing. And I've talked to a lot of people in this industry too, and some people are very supportive of it, and some people are against it, thinking it's just not going to be enough for Bitcoin. Um,
yeah,
it seems like Bitcoin, to function as money with some of the issues it does have, it'll take a lot of layered two solutions to get it there if it's going to function as cash, as money.
yeah, exactly. I think Lightning is not a silver bullet. It's like one piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Piece of the puzzle. We need. I mean, depending on what you're going to use it for. I mean, if you're going to do, it works just fine for high value transfers today, but that's not what everyday people do. But it does work nice in some ways, but
Mm-hmm.
not all. And
True.
we need different solutions for different problems.
Right. I think the thing that concerns people the most about Bitcoin being money is the fact that it's just too slow, and then the transaction fees get pretty high. So without some
Yeah,
good layered solutions, it might not really function as money with all the competition that's out there. Um, but I mean, I could be wrong about that too. I mean, who really knows? I mean, we are pretty early in this, aren't we?
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. If the transaction fees are too high for small value transfers in Bitcoin, well, move your Bitcoin to something else and do the transaction there, and then back to Bitcoin. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I I mean, you can move a bigger sum to another wallet with some other tokens in it if you want
Mm-hmm.
quick payments, and then you can do a bunch of quick payments there and then move back to Bitcoin. But I think most of those solutions will be built natively on Bitcoin, on layer 2 solutions.
Yeah. Anyways, regarding your book, where can people buy it, and can they buy it with Bitcoin?
That's a very good question. No, you can't buy it with Bitcoin actually.
Dang it.
But it's available on Manning's website.
Mhm.
It's manning.com/books/grocking-bitcoin.
Okay.
That's the landing page for the book. You can buy it there. If you want to try before buy, this book is also available open source. So it is available on GitHub. Just search Grocking Bitcoin on GitHub, and you'll find it there. And I've also put up. Never mind. Yeah, so you can find it on GitHub if you just want to, get an idea on the content.
Geez, Manning at some point should implement a Bitcoin pay feature so people can actually buy your book in Bitcoin. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give them a little push and see if they're interested in doing that.
Yeah, I'll gladly help them out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if they have any questions about the book, they can reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at Kalle Rosenbaum, one word.
Awesome. You're on Twitter. Are you on Instagram at all or any other platforms?
No,
Just Twitter.
I'm mostly on Twitter,
Okay.
a little bit on Mastodon. There I'm Kalle at mastodon.cloud.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on and, talk about your book and, have an awesome talk about Bitcoin and everything and where it's going and learning a little bit more about you and your background. I think it was a fun conversation. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. So again, thank you for coming on, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. Anytime. Stay safe in quarantine. Have fun in Sweden.
Yeah, you too. Have fun in Colombia. I hope you get back home soon.
Yeah, me too. Hopefully in September, we'll see if this virus gets any better.
Nice. Stay safe, man.
All right, you too. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay. Yeah, bye.